Hey, this is Rogue Review and welcome to another episode of Skul. This episode I'm going to be stacking 9 of every single legendary item to see what they do, what effects they have, and if it's viable or not. First of all, we're going to start with Approaching Death, a legendary dagger that chases and eliminates the target. Not really. Amplifies damage to poison enemies by 30%, so this is 30 times 9, 270% amplified damage increase. This is what it looks like on enemies. Yeah, it just poisons them, and the poison is also amplified, so that poison just one-shots all the enemies. Is it worth stacking? I'd say not really. It kind of leaves you vulnerable. Next up, we have Crown of Thorns. Bloody Crown of Thorns. A legendary wreath, restored colors. The successor's blood will be preserved forever. Critical hits conjure spikes that deal additional physical damage to nearby enemies. Each subsequent critical hit performed within 5 seconds after the last amplifies physical damage of the spikes by 10%. And you get a 25% crit rate, so you get Misfortune and Masterpiece. What it looks like on enemies. If I can get a critical... Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty busted. Is it good? It seems that it is pretty good, yeah. It doesn't one-shot all the enemies, which I was kind of hoping it would, but I think it's pretty okay. Next we have Cursed Living Embers. A vessel that holds cursed flames that cannot be quenched. Embers explode at the end of burn duration, dealing magic damage. It gives you Heirloom and Arson. Pretty nice. There we go. Pretty big explosions. Is it worth it? I don't think so at all, because you're left very vulnerable when you're waiting for the burn duration to go down, so it's not very good. Reseed. Nature itself that laid the foundation of the forest. Increased physical attack and magic attack by 40%, and swapping summons a world tree. Cooldown 60 seconds. The world tree lasts 15 seconds, and standing near it increases physical attack and magic attack by 60%, and reduces damage taken by 20%. So 520 physical attack and 520 magic attack it would be if I wasn't using the Grim Reaper, but then when you swap, this happens. And you go up to 1060 physical attack and magic attack, and your damage taken goes all the way down to 0.13, which is pretty crazy. It's strong, but I wouldn't recommend using it simply because how long it takes to actually get to this point, and the fact that it's a minute cooldown, just too many drawbacks. O cursed one, you will wander the afterlife for eternity, for you cannot die. Taking a fatal blow restores 40 HP and destroys the voodoo doll. And it also gives you artifact and revenge. Nothing big. This is... Okay, keep going. Well, that's basically what it looks like. Gave me a revive. Activated again. Okay, now we have the Veiled Mask. An inscrutable mask that grants immense power in the exchange for eyes. Decreased crit rate by 30%, increased crit damage by 70%. Now this is one of those ones that are just horrible. Genuinely bad. You should never ever stack this. Because you're never gonna get a crit. And so that's 8 times damage. That's pretty crazy, but you're never gonna crit. So it actively brings you down. So just never do it. It's horrible. We have Chimera's Poison Fangs. The foul-smelling fang of a chimera is still frothing. Poison enemies at 20% HP or below die immediately, 10% for adventurers or bosses. Now I don't know if this stacks, but if it does stack, this is crazy, obviously, but if it doesn't stack, it's pretty useless. It does give poison and heritage, which is cool, I guess. Let me try it again with this guy. Yeah, this stack, it doesn't work. I don't recommend stacking that at all. It's pretty useless. Now we have the ring. 1 ring to rule them all. Well, I have 9, so not really. Increase physical attack and magic attack by 40%, so 360%. Increase attack speed by 30%, 270%. Increase crit rate by 90%. That's awesome. Increase skill cooldown speed by 450%. And increased max HP by 450, so yeah, pretty busted stats. And yeah, my health is 600. My physical attack and magic attack is 250. Attack speed is 370. Skill cooldown has 610. Swap cooldown is 161. It's basically OP. Now this is what it looks like on enemies. Yeah, that's pretty busted. About basically every single attack is a critical hit, no matter what, and it does massive damage. Is it worth stacking? Absolutely. This item is like a jack of all trades, and having more of those is just amazing. Sif's wings, torn wings of a fairy who is believed to have secluded herself from the rest of the world, increases mid-air dash distance and cooldown speed by 50%. 10 mid-air dashes release blades of wind that deal magic damage. Gives you heritage and soar, pretty good. It does seem like the cooldown is not really there. I mean, it's there, but it's very slight. The distance, though, is not there at all. Looks like on enemies. Oh wow, okay, that's pretty dang busted. Would I recommend stacking this? Absolutely. Is it actually, it's good for, it's clearly good for enemies. Is it good for bosses? Most likely. Next up, we've got the Raven Monarch Feather. The principles and material densities of two different worlds create a vacuum when they collide. When swapping creates a giant vortex that pulls enemies toward the center and deals magic damage. Heritage and mutant. Okay. Well, I'm not really sure if it stacks, but it's doing its job, I guess. Oh, it stacks, alright. Yeah, that basically just one-shot everything. That was a lot of damage. So it triggers 9 times. Is it worth it? I actually think it's pretty worth it, because it doesn't have a cooldown. It just as soon as you swap, it triggers, so I feel like that's actually really worth it. One of the best swap items in the game, just multiplied, so I feel like that's pretty worth it. This one's a little weird, because the more you take, the more legendaries drop, so I have all of this, and this gives me 1,240 damage and 0.55 damage taken, which is cool, I guess, but it also drops basically a lot of legendaries, so you can just mix and match whatever you want. So stacking this is kind of useful for that one reason only, is the fact that you can get as many legendaries as you want. So I'd say it's pretty worth stacking. Got the Nether Mana Suppressor. Do not use magic in this area, even though the suppressor won't last much longer. Increases magic attack by 60%, and for every 10% increase in skill cooldown speed, additionally increase magic attack by 6%. At the moment I only have 36% skill cooldown. It can stack up to 60, so it's not the full power, but it's pretty good. Already it's 1,860. I'm pretty sure that could stack up to a lot more. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty okay with stacking. It's just pure damage, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't one-shot, so it's not the... If you had a choice between stacking a few other legendaries, I would not recommend this one, but it's fine. It's completely fine. It's not like it's actually bad, so yeah. Next up, we have the Multidimensional Prism, a Manatech crystal which harnesses the power of the dimensions by dispersing the light. Swapping summons a multidimensional prism, 30-second cooldown, sprays lasers nearby and explodes dealing physical damage and leaving 6 Manatech components. Just a giant shower of lasers, and it just explodes into just a bunch of tiny mana things. Is this worth stacking? Kind of. I mean, it's very strong. I'm sure it would do tons of damage to bosses, but the only problem is the cooldown, and when you're not on cooldown, you're basically powerless. And next up we have the Miracle Grail. It's incredible. Look at that red water keep filling up. Amplify damage by 400% the third time bleed is applied. So think about that for a second. It gives you relic and bleed, but this is 4,000. It's 400%, which 400% times 9 is 8,600. 3,600% damage. One more time. There we go. I couldn't read that, but that was a lot of damage. I'm sure this thing would have one-shot bosses. Is it good? I don't think it's the best in the world, but yeah, that did 1,639 damage. It wouldn't one-shot bosses, but it would tank them like crazy. Now we have Mane of the Beast. In the pitch black darkness of flowing crimson mane of fear, enemies who dash into receive a mark. Attacks made against marked enemies turn into a critical hit, dealing damage. The mark disappears after hit. The best, but I guess the damage it does, like that right there, is pretty good, so it's not bad actually, but the damage is not the best, I'd say. Yeah, would I recommend actually? Yeah, would it be able to defeat a whole run with this? Not too sure about that. Next up we have Light Spirit Lou. Light Spirit who remain loyal to the foolish and elementalist, rest in the calling to the end. Light Spirit Lou follows you and calls down a barrage of light to a random enemy every 18 seconds, dealing magic attack. Gives you Fairy Tale and Wisdom, and this is what it looks like on enemies. Just a ray of light, pretty damn broken. Also gives you Oberon, obviously, because that's what Oberon does. It doesn't actually seem to do that much damage, because it struggled to defeat that plate armor, but maybe effects like that are just not good against plate armor. But regardless, this is just beautiful. It just kills everything. Would I recommend? Yeah. Next up we have Infinite Bone. This is the perfect container for the valuable scrolls from the witch. Skills create a 30% chance of resetting until cooldown. Resetting their cooldown when used. Gives you bone and mana cycle. I used Gambler for this just to showcase the craziness of it. Basically, it just lets you use your skills constantly. Would I recommend this? Hell yeah, this is just busted. Next up we have Hope Slasher. Why does everyone believe that they will survive? Increase physical attack by 60% based on the physical damage inflicted on enemies. Additionally, increase physical attack up to 60%. So each of these are 120%. At the moment I have 894, and let's see how well it does on enemies. Yeah, basically just one-shots a lot of enemies. I have to keep doing damage to max it out. Hold up. There it is. Max stacks gives you up to 2,236 damage. Pretty damn crazy. Would I recommend this? Oh yeah. Next up we have Armor of Fear. Fear is the root of all superstitions and one of the roots of cruelty. Create a shockwave at the end of stun duration, dealing fixed damage. The shockwave's damage is proportional to the damage dealt to the stunned enemy. Gives you Fortress and Dizziness. I don't really know why it's Fortress, but you know. But yeah, stun. I'd say that's not bad. It's not good though. Evil Sword Kyrian. A cursed sword that absorbs life force, cannot be wielded by those who bleed. Increases physical attack by 60% when attacking with a normal and dash attacks. Performs a powerful slash, dealing physical damage. Gives you arms and rapidity. And I'm up to 1,005. 1,000. This is what it does to this crazy boss. Just annihilates the boss. No competition. Obviously, I highly recommend stacking that because I just destroyed her. Now we have the Glacier Breaker. I hate ice. Break them all. Amplifies damage to frozen enemies by 30%. Damaging a frozen enemy deals additional magic damage. Gives you absolute 0 and execute. Is this good? We'll see. This is what it looks like on enemies. Basically one-shots the enemy if it's frozen, which is pretty busted. Obviously. Getting enemies to be frozen can be a little difficult, but if you have the Ice Skull, obviously not. So I would say it's pretty good if you have the Ice Skull. Now we have Doomsday. There is no such thing as salvation. When the day comes, everyone will be destroyed. Create an apocalypse every 44 seconds. Apocalypse reduces all skill to cooldown by 5 seconds and triggers an explosion after 11 seconds, dealing fixed damage. The explosion damage is proportional to the physical damage dealt to enemies between the apocalypse and the explosion. And this is what it looks like on enemies. Let's just deal some quick damage here. It basically does make your skills pretty invincible, so you have infinite skill cooldown, which is busted obviously, so yeah, that's pretty broken. I'd say I'd recommend it, except the whole 50 seconds. After the whole 44 seconds thing is kind of annoying, but it's actually pretty busted, so I actually recommend this one. Now we have Pain and Despair. The two glimmering swords, they sparkled as if in warning that they would butcher you. Increases attack speed by 50%. Every normal attack, skill, or dash increases attack speed by 2% and movement speed by 1%. When you max all this out, it becomes 250% attack speed, and it basically just looks like Skul is little bone is wobbling his head. He's rocking out. But yeah, this is pretty busted attack speed. Yeah, pretty broken. Would I recommend it? Actually, yeah, this is actually really cool. I think it's very good. Obviously, it starts off not the best, but then it stacks up really quickly, and it just becomes phenomenal. Now we have the Dawn of the Argent Moon. 2 moons and the Argent Light amid the chaos. Increases magic attack by 100%, pretty busted. Attacking an enemy unleashes an Argent Light of Dawn, which deals damage to nearby enemies. Cooldown of 50 seconds. Gives 18 artifact, that's pretty busted. And gives 1,105 magic attack. This is what it looks like on enemies. Just massive damage. Do I recommend it? Hell yeah. If you're doing a magic build, this is broken. I love it. We have Dark Spirit Shade, the Foolish Elementalist. Rusto Clement went insane when he realized after ruining the world that he was tricked by the first stage he'd sealed. Invokes an Assault of Darkness against a random enemy every 18 seconds, dealing magic damage. Gives you Fairy Tail and Brawl, as well as Obrion. Is this worth it? Hell yeah. Though I do recommend getting the Light Spirit instead of this one. This one's good and all, but the Light Spirit also gives you Wisdom, which is obviously way better for this build than Brawl. So, is it busted? Hell yeah, I highly recommend it. This is Dawn of the Crimson Sun. 2 suns and the crimson light of dawn that radiates through the ruins. It's basically the same thing as the moon item stacked, but instead of magic attack, it's physical attack. Increases physical attack up to 100%. 1,105 damage, yep. And the whole giant crimson light thing also gives you 18 arms, pretty good. And boom. Hopefully hit some enemies. That was busted. Cooldown of 5% is obviously very broken. But regardless, this thing is pretty busted. I highly recommend it. Now we have Fluke and Dawn. Wait for the promised victory as dawn breaks. This is just a combination of both the items. Increases physical attack and magic attack by 80%. And unleashes the light of dawn, dealing damage to nearby enemies based on the higher attack power. And he gives you arms and artifact. But the damage is both the same, so I'm not really sure which one is going to happen. But we'll see what happens. Well, I didn't exactly get to see what happened, but damn, that was crazy. So this would be one of the best items I recommend, because it gives you both artifact and arms, and it doesn't really matter what kind of skull you're going for. It works for every build, so I just recommend this really a lot, because it's just great adventurous items. First one up, the Chosen Warrior's Armor. With 9 of these, you get 20 shields upon entering a map and 40 upon entering a boss map, so this will give me 9 times that, so this gives me 180 each map, and stacks up to 900, so this is pretty busted. Is it worth stacking? I mean, stacking up to 9 items makes you practically invincible, so I guess kind of. Next up we have the Chosen Thief's Twin Swords, which upon dealing the first attack to an enemy, attack speed increases by 100% and the enemy slows down for 5 seconds. Also gives you full inscriptions for Chase and Hidden Blade, which is pretty cool. And this is what it looks like on enemies, just literally just the fastest attack speed you've ever seen. Just so fast you can't even see him swing the blade. It's pretty phenomenal. And it is quite literally 1,000 attack speed. Is this worth stacking? With the right skull, it would be very much so, but with this one, not really. I mean, this being fast helps, and it does seem like it completely staggers the enemies, like they can't move at all. My personal favorite, the Mage's Badge, which gives you 3 fireballs that spin around the player, dealing magic damage. When you use a skill, each fireball explodes and deals magic damage and rotates faster. The reason I love this so much is because it's literally just a ring of fire. Literally nothing can get near you. Nothing at all. Everything just dies. Then we have the Chosen Hunter's Arrow, which increases crit rate by 25% and increases your attack by 2% for every crit rate you have, up to 400% increase. So it's basically just a bunch of crit rate and damage upgrade. So it stacks up to 3,760 damage, which is, it's a lot of damage by the way. And a crit rate up to 235%. This does guarantee that every single attack is a critical hit, so yeah, every single attack literally goes around and one-shots every. The Hero's Circlet, which makes you invincible for 7 seconds when you reach 15% or less HP, and while you are invincible, you gain more damage, and your movement speed is also increased. And when it ends, you just recover that HP. So I'm hoping that they don't all trigger at once, because that kind of. Oh, they do. Oh. Well, it just seems to lag it out. Yeah, I don't think this is very worth stacking at all. Now finally we have the Cleric's Bible, which recover 1 HP upon defeating 10 enemies. Upon recovering HP, gain wings that last for 10 seconds. Physical attack and magic attack increase by 80% and movement speed increases by 50%. A random enemy is punished every 2 seconds. Punishment inflicts damage based on the higher attack power between physical and magic attack. And it does give you Execute and Relic, which is cool, I guess. Okay, that's very quick. And I would say it's actually pretty worth stacking. Yeah, that damage increase is definitely there. So is the movement speed increase. I don't think you could win with this. It's just not very viable. Especially against bosses, so yeah, I wouldn't recommend getting it. If you want to just murder all the enemies on the screen, sure, go for it, I guess. If you enjoyed that video, thank you for watching and have a nice day.